Hello, everyone. This is criminal profiler Pat Brown, and today we're going to look at something which I deal with, well, I would say over my career, I've dealt with quite a few times. These are cases where the police have determined that the deaths of certain people were not murders, but the families believe they were. A good portion of the time, what we're dealing with is ligature suspension. I'm going to use that word due to the way AI and the little feelers that come out and find whether you're saying things inappropriate. I'm going to call it, ligature suspension. I have to look over here because I was like, that's not what I would normally say, ligature suspension. But we're going to use that. This is an educational channel, so the idea is not to say things that are inflammatory in any way or are concerning to YouTube and the advertisers. So I can keep going with this kind of a show. So anyway, I've gotten these many times over my long career. I've had people contact me and say, look, I think the police are wrong. My child would never do that. They wouldn't take their own life. They wouldn't do that to themselves. I just can't even, no, they would never do that. And for the most part, the family is not correct and the police are. I would say almost all the time, the police are correct. And a lot of times it's extremely obvious that that person took their life and they were not murdered. And my favorite story about this, it just makes me, well, I wouldn't want to say laugh, but so I had a woman who called me up and she sent me the photos and everything. And she said, my son was murdered. And I said, well, tell me what happened that day. And she goes, well, I was home and my son burst into the house. And I said, and he looked angry. And I said, what's wrong? And he wouldn't talk to me. And then he went to his brother's room and pulled a shotgun off the wall. And then I said, honey, what are you doing? And he left the house. And then he went back to his trailer that he had out there in a kind of isolated spot. And he was found later dead by shotgun in that trailer. And the trailer was locked from the inside. They had to break in. And I'm like, what part didn't you get? It was so obvious. But even then, it was, no, my son would never do that. And so good portion of them are very obvious. There's another case where I had where a young girl took her life. She left a 3-page note explaining why. And sadly, her uncle found her. And since the family couldn't accept that she would do something like this, they blamed the uncle and thought the uncle killed her. And this poor guy, I mean, he was already traumatized by finding her, but now the whole family thinks he killed her. And they brought me in and I told them, no, he didn't do it. This is exactly what it looks like. And the note is hers. It's absolutely hers. It's got girly handwriting all over it. I don't think he could have figured that out. And yet he spent some time, I believe he actually ended up in a psychiatric institute for a while because he was so traumatized by everything. So it's kind of a crazy thing. But it's hard to sometimes accept that your child wasn't happy and that therefore in a moment of desperation, they did something like that. And you didn't have a chance to help them, or you didn't know you were supposed to help them. They didn't come to you and you feel guilt and you feel remorse and all kinds of horrible things. And somehow if they could have been murdered, it takes that away from you. I mean, in a way you think, well, that's even worse. Your child was happy and they got murdered. I mean, is that a better thing? But oddly, it is for a lot of families. It's just, it gives them a place to be angry at too, as opposed to themselves, just angry at your child and angry at yourself. Now you have somebody else to be angry at and you can take you don't have to be mad at your kid and you don't have to be mad at yourself. So very interesting situation that does happen that way. So anyway, well, and welcome everybody who's in the chat room. I've said hello to most of you so far, but Molly just rolled in and who else just rolled in? Who else? David just rolled in. Jill rolled in. Busy here today. Oh, wow. Madcaps and anybody else just come in? I think I said hello to everybody else. Oh, no, Cheryl's here now. Goodness gracious. So it's a real problem. with the families in this. So anyway, hi, Mike. Mike is here as well. And I do want to ask if everybody can hear me. I do. Because somebody said they didn't have any sound. And I want to make sure that it's only on your end. It's not on my end. And while I find out whether anybody else is having problems, I do want to welcome everybody to consider joining Patreon. The link is below. It's $5 a month. And you can come to 2 live shows a week, the case show on the weekend and the hangout during the week. And it helps an educational channel. And you can be in the chat room with this wonderful group of people. And yeah, it's fun. And if you don't want to do that, please do subscribe to the channel and click the bell. Subscribing is free, and all of my videos, once the live is over, go public. So there's nothing hidden, so you can see everything, because I want people to learn. All right, now let's get back to this. All right, so what about these 2 cases? So everybody says sound is clear. Okay, well, I'm sure glad about that. We had a little problem the other day, and I didn't want to deal with that again. All right, so these 2 cases, we have Dr. Kathleen Lennon over here, and we have Greg Meisner over here. And both of them were found in a state of ligature suspension. I'm going to use that word instead of the other word, ligature suspension. And she was found in her basement. He was found in his bedroom. Okay. Now, both of these parents, both of the mothers, very, very strongly believed they did not take their own lives. That they were murdered for sure. And I just let me introduce you to their moms. This is Kathleen's mom, and over here we have this is a picture of Steve and Sharon Meisner. Those are Greg's parents, and I actually know this case very well because I worked on this case 20 years ago for the Meisners. I used to do pro bono work for families in cases like this, so I do know that case well. And I say it's one of the many cases that people came to me and said, I don't think my child was murdered. I did not work on the Kathleen Lennon case, which is a fairly new case. By the way, she was 33 and he was 18. So one of these, I think, is a homicide. And one of these, I do not think, is a homicide. And so I'm going to give you the quick review of both these cases without any commentary. And I'm going to see what you, just in your heart, or just in your very short time of being able to profile from what I'm telling you, which one do you think is more likely to be homicide and which one do you think is less likely to be homicide? So it's going to be interesting to see what you all have to say. So if you know anything about these cases ahead of time, please. Okay. So, yeah, he does have a baby face for 18. I don't know if that was picture when he was 18. I don't know. Sometimes people just pick a favorite photo, and yeah. So anyway, here we go. So nobody even started. This is lady most likely. You haven't even heard anything, Texas. Wait till I read you something. All right. I wanted, Clarissa says, coming in cold. I did not tell people too much about these cases for a reason, because I wanted you to hear the cases without any commentary first. So, okay, don't tell me, don't go into the cases already, okay? If you know something, just keep it to yourself for now, all right? So, now, let's start with, let's see, I'll go to the oldest case first, Greg Meisner, since I worked on Greg Meisner's case, not with the police, but with the family. All right, now, let me find so I got a lot of stuff open here. I got to find the right things. Okay, here's our police report that I have from back in the day. All right. So what did they find when they arrived? On January 5th, 1998, a dispatch received a call at approximately 8:07 a.m. from a Sharon Meisner stating she had found her son and he appeared to be cold and would not wake up. It appeared from the visual of the room that the victim was lying in a westerly direction, approximately 2 feet from the wall to the closet. The body was fully clothed. But he had no shoes on. The victim was dressed in blue jeans and a blue-colored shirt. Around the victim's neck was a rope, a hemp-type rope. There was also appeared to be clothing between the neck and the rope. This is really important in this case. So there's clothing here and then a rope. But the clothing is doing 2 things. Softens the feeling of the rope, and it also prevents you, if you survive, from anybody seeing rope marks on your neck. Lying on the floor next to the victim was a chair, which appeared to be an older kitchen chair that was tipped over with its legs on the floor. So they asked her if there had been anybody with him after midnight when she left the residence, and she stated no. She stated he was with friends during the day, but when she left, he was sleeping. And she kept asking me over and over how he died, and we told her that we didn't know at this point whether he had taken his own life or it was an accident. And she couldn't accept that he killed himself, so she said he was murdered. He was murdered. He was murdered. All right. Now, the police determined, and we're talking about 20 years ago. Yeah, police determined that he died by either taking his own life or accident. And you might say, what is the accident part? The accident part is when you find a person who has that cloth between the rope and their neck, that many times is autoerotic, an autoerotic thing they're playing out. It's a sexual thing, and sometimes it's not even a sexual thing as much as when there's pressure against the sides of your neck, it prevents blood from going back to your brain. So you kind of get a high, you get the zippy high, and some people like that high. And so what the idea is that you're not intending to do yourself in. All you usually do is just bend your legs and let that happen. And then when you get high or finish what you're doing with the autoerotic stuff, you just stand back up. But unfortunately, sometimes what happens is they take too long, especially if it's a sexual thing. They take too long to get to where they want to get to, and they pass out and then once they pass out, they can't stand back up. So the police were basically, we can't say which one it was, but because of the cloth between the rope and his neck, we're going to go with, it could be autoerotic. And, but it could be he also took his own life. So that's where they came up with. Yeah, Carradine was one who did that. Yes, it's much more common than you would think. And again, people don't want to believe it. I had a case where a young man was kind of naked in that situation, and he had shaving cream on his hand and elsewhere, and it was over in Japan, so the family thought the Yakuza killed him. I'm like, no, this is clearly an autoerotic sex thing. Sorry. And sometimes there's pornography laying out. There was not in his case. But that can be there. And sometimes a family will actually remove the items before the police get there because they don't want it. It's an embarrassing thing. So if there is pornography, they'll just sweep it up and hide it so that that's not part of the case, right? So there's always that problem if somebody screwed up the crime scene. But they did not find any of that material of that sort. So that's the basics on Gregory Meisner. So now let's go to the basics on Kathleen Lennon. All right, Kathleen Lennon. This is autoerotic. You may see some evidence of a setup for the experience. That is true. It's possible. There's all kinds of possibilities with autoerotic and some people get really extreme with that, and they use all kinds of. They put all their people put themselves into like vacuum cleaners, all kinds of weird stuff, because that's the thrill of being, I don't know, enclosed. So that's where the hands behind the back. And it's like, there was from what I can see in the pictures, there was a length of rope between the hands. So theoretically he could undo himself. So, so anyway, so that's why the police came to that conclusion. All right. So Kim says, I'm way too old for that stuff. Hopefully, I wish everybody were too old for that stuff. But unfortunately, surprising. So anyway, let's see the original on, okay. So in the case of Kathleen Lennon, what happened here was this. In a quiet town in she's 33 years old, by the way. She's a horse trainer and a veterinarian. Very successful woman. Inside a quiet town northeast of Columbus, quarter horse trophies, mementos, and photos from competitions watch over the space where Dr. Kathleen Lennon, a prominent 33-year-old veterinarian and champion equestrian, lived and died. On March 13th, 2023, Columbus police officers arrived to find her, the ligature thing, I just can't remember that word, in the basement from a beam. The preliminary police report quickly labeled the death, well, that she took her life, not a homicide, and that it appeared to be that she did this to herself. All right. So, but the family didn't believe it because there were disturbing clues. To those who knew her, Lennon was a quiet, confident, and caring soul. She was highly successful and actively planning her future just before she died. She was at the top of her game, said her mother. Maria McKeon, an attorney based in Connecticut. According to McKeon and Lennon's mentor, Texas veterinarian Dr. Piper Norton, there were zero signs of depression in the zero signs of depression. In the days leading up to her death, Lennon was making major purchases for future horse shows, including an RV and a $25,000 silver saddle. She was also finalizing plans for a major career move to Florida. When she was found in the basement, they were in disbelief. She said, "This is just unbelievable." Dr. Norton's suspicions deepened when the initial coroner's report revealed a critical toxicological finding. Lennon had acute intoxication of xylazine. Sick, I forgot how. Okay. Oh, it's a misspelling. Okay, xylazine, Xylazine is how it's pronounced or spelled, in her system when she died. Xylazine is a potent horse tranquilizer. A top veterinarian, Dr. Norton, says Dr. Lennon would have known the drug is highly toxic to humans. When I heard that she killed herself by injecting herself with xylazine, I immediately knew she did not do that because it causes painful cardiac and respiratory distress before forcing a person into a coma-like state. It would not be a peaceful death. Adding that when she had the xylazine in her system, how would she then go hang herself in the basement? When I said the word, I'm trying to avoid. Okay, the logistics of the injection raised even more red flags. Lennon was right-handed, yet the injection site was on her right arm. In other words, if your dominant hand is here, usually you inject over here. Because then you'd have to, if you have an injection here, you have to use your left hand, which is not coordinated. And the butterfly catheter, a tube attached to a syringe that she supposedly used to inject herself, appeared to require two hands to assemble. To prove the improbability that she could have done this, Norton made a video demonstration of how difficult it would be to put the apparatus together using only one hand. And she did do that on this is Dr. Norton, her friend, is trying to show the stuff that, besides being found in the basement from that ligature, she had to put this thing together and put a this butterfly thing into her arm, and then hook that. Then she has to hook that thing, the syringe thing, up on the left, and she's got to do all that. And so that she's like, how the heck is she doing this with her non-dominant hand? And then how if she injects herself with this animal tranquilizer, how does she get down to the basement and put her head in a noose and climb up some ladder and put her head in a noose? And how does she do all that? And on top of that, she said also, officers found only one bottle of xylazine located on a table near her body. So by the way, this is, where's the table? Table, where are you? Oh, here. She was a very neat person, had a very neat table. And one thing bothered the woman was, why is that? I think that box is open. You might get some gloves out of it. She said, well, she's so particular, she would have closed that. But she said also that there was only one bottle of xylazine. It was unopened and factory sealed. No other containers of the drug were found in her home. So what container did she use? So they've been looking to try to figure out what happened to her. So they brought in a guy by the name of Norman, Dr. Stephen Norman, a renowned and board-certified forensic pathologist from Louisiana. He reviewed the evidence and he found there were three things that bothered him. He said he saw chokehold injuries, contusions discovered on her lower neck, shoulders, and right ear, consistently being placed in chokeholds. Incapacitation attempt. 2 trickles of dry blood on her right arm suggest an attacker incapacitated her while attempting to insert the IV. And the stage scene, narrow, complex design of the noose combined with the positioning of a small ladder found next to the body suggested a perpetrator lifted her heavy, unconscious body into the hanging position. And the other thing he said was that they said that they didn't find any, all the stuff here, the wrappers, the little piece that comes off the top of, none of that stuff was there. So what happened to all the things that she was opening everything? Where did all that stuff go? Where did the bottle of xylazine go that she had used? Why isn't there any wrappers there? When she unwrap these things, none of that's there. And then what about the bruising that this forensic pathologist found on her neck? All right, those are the 2 cases. Oh, by the way, I forgot to mention, if I'm going to send some things here, the mother was, the thing that bothered the mother about this case was she also believed when she went to the nurse, after his body was at the funeral home, there was a scrape, or it looked like a contusion on his head, and so she thought that had some meaning, and maybe he was hit on the head and incapacitated, and then he was put in the noose, like the other guy said she was put in the noose. So basically the concept is the same, that both of them did not do that action on their own, that somebody did something to them and then staged this whole thing. What are your thoughts? I'm going to go to your comments. Which one do you think is more likely to be homicide, and which one do you think is less likely? Okay. Okay. On the information at the moment, I think Greg was an accident and Kathleen was a murder. Okay. Martina says, how could anybody forcibly place the injection port on her? Well, there was contusions around her neck for an arm bar. As a vet, she would have some access to the horse drug. Is it possible she's using it in minor amounts? No. It was definitely one-time thing. The vet is a female, is a homicide. Off the rip, it seems like the guy is self-inflicted. Boy was an accident. The vet was murdered. Meisner was more likely an accident. Top of her game, could be a motive for murder. Did I mention the married boyfriend? Who wife just found out they were having an affair? All right, let's see what else. Boy was an accident. Vet was murdered. My guess at this stage is Kathleen was murdered. Was there a man in her life who didn't want her to move away or leave? Well, the married boyfriend that the wife just found out about. Both are sad, but I believe Greg is less likely. Oh, not trying to kill himself, but he was trying it out. So accidental death, not a homicide. All right. Lennon, a homicide. Greg accidentally unalived himself. All right. Pretty much. Best not to have an opinion, get all the evidence first. Well, that's always true. That's always true. Let's see, anybody else here? I haven't. So pretty much, according to everybody here, from what I have explained so far, basically you're saying you think that it was probably an accident or something, autoerotic thing or messing around, and she was murdered. Okay. I believe he was murdered and she was not. And you're like, what? I believe he was murdered and she was not. So, total opposite. All right. So, let me start with Greg Meisner. So, Greg Meisner's mom, Sharon, that throws the wrench. Yes. Well, I'm not necessarily right, am I? Okay, this is they're both closed cases. All right, they are closed cases. But all right, Greg Meisner. So it's a very bizarre case, and I tricked you. Yes, the chat room's going nuts. Pat, that's opposite day. Give us the goods now. You enjoyed announcing that, didn't you, Pat? Oh yeah, I was setting you all up for sure. But this is an interesting problem for anybody who's working on cases, because sometimes there is evidence that is just makes you lean this way, that way, and sometimes you just don't know which way to lean, depending on who's looking at the case, what their analysis is bringing to you. So the police have a hard time, the families have a hard time, profilers have a hard time. It's not as easy as people think. So in Greg's case, it looked like most likely an autoerotic thing because of the shirt that was tucked in between the rope and his neck. If you're just going to knock yourself off, usually don't bother with that, because you just put the thing around your neck and bend your knees, and then you pass out, and that's that. But if you're doing autoerotic, you put that around your neck so mom doesn't say to you the next day, honey, why do you have a rope furrow from a rope around your neck? You don't want the questions. So you put that in there, and hopefully when you are playing your game, you succeed and you stand back up and everything is good. So it looks like that, is very possible. Now you might ask about the chair. Well, the rope was actually tucked into the door, and theoretically, you could reach the ground. So you could stand on the chair and then push it, and then it wasn't so far off so that you might not have a judicial. And so I'm afraid to say the word on you. So, but the chair, one of the weird things about the chair was kind of far away from his body. So if he had kicked the chair out or pushed it away and was tending just to drop down, and then basically you could grab a hold of I guess it was the bedroom door, and it was just hooked in there. So if you moved the door, the thing would just pop out, and then you'd be okay, which is the idea. And then there was a thing on his head, and it's like, what the heck is that? Well, as it turns out, there's two possibilities to what happened to him, but it all includes the same guy. Here's the guy. His name is Sean Padden. He's a royal piece of crap. He's a drug dealer. He became an informant. He was doing some drugs, weed and stuff like that. So were all his friends. So they were hanging out together doing all these kind of things. But he and Sean Padden they like to watch a lot of really creepy, kind of death things of people. And that included people with ropes around their necks. So, and they had videos. There are videos around of these kind of movies that I hate, the slasher kind of movies. And so they were watching these slasher kind of movies, people dying in different ways. And apparently Sean really had a thing for people being suspended by ligature. He had pictures. He was showing pictures to people. Look at this picture. Look at this picture. Now, they weren't pictures he took, but they were pictures that he enjoyed. That was his porn, essentially. It wasn't sexual. It was just a demented, just his very dark sense of him. And he did talk about another fellow who had died this similar way. And he said, pretty much it was me. And so anyway, the police did bring him in. And so when they brought him in, he admitted that he and Greg were doing cosplay. Am I saying that right? I always wonder, because that's cosplay, right? Of these kind of setups. So the rope was even supposedly his. And so they were playing with this stuff. And supposedly in a few days prior or whenever, they had been doing this, and Greg had been on the chair, and he had, I guess, did something. And Greg's like, Greg went off the chair, and then he's like, whoa, and so he let him off the door, and he thought it was funny, and Greg did not think it was funny. And so that's the story anyway. So they were supposedly taking turns doing this, and also getting high off of the lack of blood going back to the brain. So part of it was the excitement of pretending to do this, and also the high you get from it. And the other person got the thrill of watching it and all this kind of stuff, supposedly. Well, so I think this is what happened. I think there's two possibilities of what could happen. His mother believes he was hit over the head with a bowling pin, which did exist. And that's why he had a thing here, that he did not want to cooperate. And so Sean just whacked him with the bowling pin, knocked him out, and then tied up his hands, put the thing around his neck, and got him on the chair and hooked him up, and then let him kick the chair away, and got the thrill. Now, whether he took pictures or not, I don't know, but I kind of believe he would, because that would be exciting to him to have pictures of the event. That's one possibility. The other possibility is that, Greg was younger and very much easily influenced by this guy. And this guy was the one who was bringing drugs and all he was an older guy. I think he was 25. So I think he could have convinced him to go stand on that chair again. And we're going to reenact this. And this time I'm not going to do that. And then he did that for real. And then whether he hit him, like he was on the chair and he's like, well, don't kick the chair out. And he goes, well, I won't. I'll just hit you in the head first, and then I'll kick the chair out. Or whether he kicked the chair out and he then came off the chair and was still struggling, and he hit him on the head just so he'd knock him out, so he would not struggle and pull himself off the door. We'll never know which one that is. But no, it wasn't autoerotic. And no, he did not try to kill himself. Sharon was absolutely correct. His mother was correct on this one. And she fought like you would not believe for years, trying to get, and there, I'm going to link below there's one video on this. I didn't want to tell people before I went through this. And it's a small channel, but it's the only thing that, I have all the information because I worked on the case. I have all the paperwork, but that's almost nothing out on the internet on this. But there is this one, so I'm going to link it below. I just want to tell you the name of it. And I'll link it below. It's called Episode 71, The Strange Death of Greg Meisner. It's only 19 minutes long. The Unanswered Questions Podcast. And you'll get some more information on there, and just about Pat and everything. So that's a good thing to watch, after the show is over. And they, worked so hard to get them to go after somebody. And he goes into the things that, in this particular case, the police a lot of times mocked Sharon and humiliated her and messed with the evidence. And there was a really bad detective on the case, I have to say that. And he was pretty pitiful. And so, so let me just say here, I want to read the part from, just so you can get a little clue about Padden. The interrogation of Padden. So Graber says, all right, so what do? You stand like you're standing, and then you took the sheet, right? You put it around your neck and tied it with a slip knot? And Sean goes, yeah. And then you tied the knot at the other end and put it through the door, says Sean. And you put it over the door and close the door. Okay, you're standing. So he was doing this whole, trying to understand how Sean liked to do this stuff. And Sean didn't have a problem telling him. He just said, I didn't do it to him. He probably reenacted that on his own. But there was pretty much evidence that Sean Padden was there at the time. And unfortunately, Sharon didn't know it, but he was there. And so then it came down to, well, maybe he was there, but maybe it did come down to he was there, because that's how he got arrested and convicted. He was there. He admitted to being finally there. Okay, I was there, but I didn't do anything to him. I didn't intend to do anything to him. It went a few different ways. He only got third degree. That it wasn't premeditated. Really? I'm going to say that was premeditated, because I think he was itching. And I do believe he may have killed the other young man who was, and God knows if there's anybody else. I do believe he would do this over and over again. I think he's a serial killer. And that was his thing. And so I do believe he might have done the other crime, but they've never proven it. He admitted he did it, but hey, just he could have been kidding. But I think his intention was, I want to see him hanging. Oops, I said that word. And that excites me, so I want to see that. So they gave him third instead of first degree, and they said it's because he had no animosity toward Greg. He didn't want to kill Greg. Well, that's true. I don't think he didn't have any animosity toward him, but no, serial killers rarely have animosity toward the victim they killed. It's just somebody useful to them, and they don't care about them either because they're psychopaths, for God's sakes. Sean Patton was 100% a psychopath. He was a nasty piece of work. And just because he didn't particularly have anything against Greg does not mean he didn't want him dead, because he wanted him dead for the purposes of enjoying seeing him die. He should have had first. And guess what? He's out and about. He got out. I think he got out in 2015. I couldn't find any information about where that creep went to, but he's out and about somewhere. But he was a real problematic piece of work. Let me see if there was anything else from. Just want to see if I had that. No, I don't have. I'm trying to find the. Yeah, darn it. I was trying to find the other one that just talked about. Maybe it's in the police reports. Oh, okay, it's in the police reports. Hold on. I just want to read you just a little bit so you understand what kind of guy he was. Let me find the supplemental report on him. All right. Let's see about Sean Patton. Let's see, where is it? Oh, I know I read it someplace. Oh, he tied up his girlfriend's hands behind her back too. That's a bit of a hint. Yeah, okay, so yeah, here's a little bit interesting. Guy said that, all right, Tamby, that's the girlfriend who stupidly was his girlfriend, but she'd been living with her boyfriend with that. Oh no, she was living with Brett Larson. Okay, I shouldn't tell their names now. Sorry, Brett. So anyway, I shouldn't tell her name either. Anyway, they stated they were having problems. She decided to leave the residence and move in with Sean. That was in the latter part of November. And then she moved back with the other guy. And then she said she worked with him, but she wasn't employed where he worked anymore. Okay. One day, Patton brought a picture which had been copied off the internet of a person that was hanged by a hangman. It was very graphic and upset her a lot. She also stated that she met Patton's mother. Okay, then she said that Sean Patton smoked pot almost every day and has tried crank in the past. Patton also punched holes in the wall in his apartment. He stated to her he could take someone's life and not feel bad about it. She also heard from another friend that he said Patton had made a reference to her, stating that he could kill her and not feel bad about that. So more than once he said he could kill and not feel bad about it. Patton was fascinated with the movie Scream, especially the scenes where people were. And Tamby stated that this other guy who lived in the apartment had told her that Sean had put a rope around Greg's neck and pushed him down and pulled him up to the door and closed the door and hung him by the door. She said that Greg had maneuvered himself to open the door and get out of there. And then there was an argument. And Sean told her the story, and she believed Greg was scared of Sean after that incident because he managed to pull the chair away and Greg had no way of getting out, but he did manage to open the door and get out. But somehow he ended up dead the next time it happened. And then, let's see, she also stated that Sean had told her he killed someone in Moorhead, that he hit someone over the head and hung him and left a suicide note on the computer. So then he goes on, and he was just into all kinds of dark stuff, and it just goes on and on about how nasty a creature this guy is. So I don't know where he is out there, but hopefully he's nowhere near Maryland. So that's an absolute. Just run when you see a guy carrying a bowling pin. It could be. We don't know if he's a serial killer to begin with, and he was pretty young when he got out of prison. So, oh, they're really young. So he shouldn't be out of prison. He should have been in prison the rest of his life. But whatever. Yeah, that's essentially it. The creepy drug dealer that likes to watch literature death. Yeah, pretty much. That's it. Yeah. Oh, having a friend who is sadistic is a problem. And that it's interesting how, see, at a young age, people think a lot of sadistic things are cool. I don't know whether it's the weird desire to, be on the edge or be between life and death. I don't know what it is. That's why they watch slasher films, just horrifying films out there, which I think are disgusting and despicable. And I think the people who make them are psychopathic. But some people love those things. They love watching people being killed. They do. And then there's the dark web, which has lots of videos of people being killed, and people will watch them because it thrills them. Whether they're ever taken to their own hands is another question. But anybody who thinks that's awesome to watch, maybe you don't want to be their friend. And of course, he was a young man. He's only 18 years old. He's just, he's starting to party. He's having fun. And, he doesn't, and he's also exploring those weird things, because sometimes the boys love weird things. But he probably never thought he was going to end up the way he ended up that day. But unfortunately, when you have a sadistic friend who likes to watch people die, you might not want to be around them. So anyway, Mom did know on that one. And that was a rare case, very, very rare case of where when she brought the case to me, I wasn't sure, because most of the time I've been able to immediately look at it and go, yeah, that's not a homicide. In his case, I was leaning toward the police version of it until I heard more and more and more. And I'm like, wait a minute, maybe, just maybe. And she was absolutely right. All right, so that's the Greg Meisner case. This case seems more obviously a homicide than the Greg Meisner case, which in a way, in theory, he could have gotten on that chair by himself, everything, and he could have even agreed to do this with Sean Patton. And Sean Patton could just say, I'll get you down in a few minutes. He could have gone to the bathroom and he could have knocked the chair over, and Sean could have come in the room and pushed the chair away to get to him, and he was already dead. And then he freaked out and left. Could that have happened? I don't know why his defense lawyer didn't come up with that. That's the one I would have come up with. And it's entirely possible. So it was a very hard case, a very thin line to prove that Sean Patton did it. But if Sean Patton basically eventually admitted he did it, and since he did like to see people die, yeah. So that's true. The girl's evidence indicated he was not in the whole autoerotic thing, correct? Although Sean did say they did like the high they got from the pressure. So, but that doesn't necessarily autoerotic. It's just a drug high, essentially. So, yeah, you do have to be a psychopath to have a brain to think that way. All right, well, let's get to this case. All right. So, interestingly enough, right after she died, and the police said she did not, she killed herself. There is, now remember, the mother said she was super, super happy and everything was going well in her life. But then I found, where is it? Hold on a second. I found it. No, I can't find what I did with it. Come on now. I swear to God, I put it there. Okay, hold on one second while I try to retrieve it. Hold on. All right. Remembering Dr. Kathleen Lennon, obituary and service details announced. This was put out by Maria McKeon. That's her mother. Her mother wrote this. Now listen to what she writes. And I might have to use the S word in here just because it's what it says. It is with soul-searing pain and anguish that we announce the sudden death of our beloved Dr. Kathleen Lennon, age 33. Kathleen was born in Hartford, Connecticut. She is the daughter of Maria Maria McKeon, which is the woman who wrote this whole thing. Keep this in mind. She worked with the Quarter Horse Industry Show. Blah blah blah. She graduated from college in Connecticut. She went to Purdue. She went to Purdue's veterinary medicine. She won all these awards. She had outstanding skills. However, Kathleen pursued her true passion, became a renowned horse show veterinarian. And then she moved to Ohio. She had a private practice called the Pony Express Veterinary Hospital. And she started her own practice, Lennon Equine Services, in 2022, and worked diligently to help her clients. She was a perfectionist. Keep this in mind. This is important. She was a perfectionist and was so dedicated, she would relentlessly try to figure out solutions how to best help her patients. She was a diplomat, a kind-hearted soul. She worked hard. She never silenced her phone. She was constantly called out in the middle of the night to rescue horses that needed veterinary care. Kathleen almost never took a day off because so many clients loved her brilliance and dedication that soon her practice quickly outpaced the number of hours in a day. When she did manage to slip away, she loved spending time with her mom in Sarasota, Florida. She also loved competing in the show horse industry, and she was an accomplished writer. Okay, now, when she wasn't in a scrub and boot, she was just girly. All right, now, here comes the interesting part. We all lost our sweet and kind Kathleen to suicide, an ever-increasing mental health crisis. No one saw it coming because she was so incredibly stoic and private, all the while shouldering the burdens of others. We all wish we could have wrapped our arms around our Kathleen in her time of desperation, pulled her back to us, and surrounded her with our collective love. Kathleen did know she was loved, but in the end, her private stresses outweighed that love, and she made an incredibly sad choice to leave us. That's interesting. So she didn't have a problem actually believing that her daughter might have done this, in spite of the fact that by the time she talked to the media, she said that she had no problems whatsoever. All right. So let's look at, what else was going on in her life before we get to the weird stuff, because then it comes down to she did something to herself or her married boyfriend did something to her, because her mother has a civil suit against the boyfriend, charging him with, let's see, let me look at the civil suit details. Just so I want you to get this, and then we'll go to the information about the actual crime scene. All right. She was 33 years old. Plaintiff Maria McKeon is the mother and court-appointed executor of the estate of Dr. Kathleen Lennon. At all times relevant to the action, the defendant, I'm going to call him married boyfriend, just because I don't see any need to put his name out there, because I don't know that he's done anything. So he has been an owner and trainer, and he's also an owner and trainer. He had a 3-year romantic, although married, since 2016, he had a 3-year romantic relationship with Kathleen, which, as alleged below, ultimately contributed to her untimely death. So now what I always find interesting is that mom blames him. Well, he was married. He shouldn't have been cheating on his wife. It's not a nice thing. But she was cheating on him she knew that he was married, and she went on with 3 years, even though they were married, had kids. She didn't seem to have a problem with breaking up the family. So I wouldn't say she's Miss Perfect either. So anyway, let's see. All right. Kathleen's last known communication to anyone was a text message to the married boyfriend on 4:25 p.m. on Saturday, March 11th, believed to be the date of her death. Responding to his request for health papers he needed for horses he was going to show in Florida. So she says, I'll get you some more information. The mother says, She did not have a mental health history, although she was a perfectionist, worked nonstop, and actually, after the word suicide is 3 times higher for female veterinarians than the general population because of the stress of the job and also euthanizing animals. So it's not on it's really 3 times higher than the population. And she was highly stressed, never took a break, and she was having an affair on the sly. So I'm going to say she got some issues. So she had no financial issues. Okay, that's fine. She'd purchased a new show horse the week before, and a lot of times people point to things that when somebody's doing something positive, they say, "Oh, well, that means like they would never think of doing themselves in." She was extremely close with their mother and told everything good and bad. There was no note left for her mother. Oh, mothers! One of the things after the fact, mothers will say these things, and like she knew everything. Maybe she didn't know everything. I mean, I'm close to my daughter. I'm pretty sure I don't know everything. Kathleen had a dog. She adored the dog, and she would never abandon her. She was found outside in an ice-covered backyard in freezing rain. Okay, well, when people decide to do themselves in, sometimes they figure somebody's going to find them quickly and the dog will be fine for whatever reasons. But they're saying the dog was outside, so why is the dog outside? Wouldn't she let the dog in the house when she was going to do this? The dog would be comfortable. And I don't know, again, whether there's a doghouse outside or anything else, whether it's a covering for the dog. I don't know. But the insinuation here is that the married boyfriend came over and killed her and made sure the dog was outside. And is that reasonable? It is reasonable. See, this is what I'm saying. There's these interesting things on both sides. Let's see. She said that her system contained xylazine, but only bottle of xylazine found in the home was unopened and indeed medically sealed. That's true. The use of xylazine to kill herself is highly improbable. Well, it was actually the noose that killed her, but she had a series of drugs in a lockbox, which, had she used them, would have provided a painless, near instant death without the horrible, painful, slow death by hanging, which, by the way, is not necessarily true. That a lot of times, unless it's judicial, it's actually a very simple way. But she's also if you have this stuff in your system, you pass out really quickly. So either way, you're probably not experiencing much. All right. The drugs are not accessible to anyone besides Kathleen because they were controlled drugs kept in a box. She had to euthanize horses on a regular basis. She was adept at putting down a horse painlessly and quickly using controlled drugs. Xylazine was a sedative used on horses and found in many horse bonds at the time of Kathleen's death. So they're trying to say, well, the boyfriend works in the same industry, so he would have access to xylazine, which is true. Keep that in mind. That's true. She was right-handed and used her right hand to give thousands of injections over her career, yet the injection site was on her right. Why would she inject here instead of here? Okay. And also it says she could have chosen a more accessible location, such as her hip or thigh. She could have. And then it says something about the gauge of the needle, which I'm not sure I quite understand. And the needle attached to the catheter was found under a ladder near her body where it's unlikely to have fallen on its own. Okay. I'd have to see the crime scene photos on that to see whether it could fall. I don't know why she thinks it couldn't have fallen there. If it's somebody's hand and they dropped it. But she's saying the killer dropped it there. And Kathleen couldn't have done that. Let's see. Okay, so there was no reason to use an IV catheter. It appears to be placed at the scene to create the illusion of suicide. All right. The needle that appears to have been used to administer the xylazine was not found in her arm. Instead, it was found underneath the two-step aluminum ladder on the left side of her body, even though the injection was in her right arm. The lightweight aluminum ladder was was upright and inconsistent with kicking and struggling, which normally accompanies asphyxiation. It doesn't necessarily. She died by hanging using the ladder. She would have likely kicked it. A makeshift tourniquet was found on her right arm, which is hard for a right-handed person to do. There were these streams of dried blood that ran horizontally across both of Kathleen's arms, indicating her body was in a supine position until the blood dried. Had she been hanging, the blood would be streaming down vertically. Blah, 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 blah. There was bruising near her clavicle, which had nothing to do with the ligature hanging, most likely from a chokehold or other encounter with a person. No broken hyoid bone, which typically happens only if you're jumping. Blah, blah, blah. The defendant, okay, let's get to the defendant, the boyfriend, had been involved in extramarital affair with Kathleen for 3 years, which had been discovered by his wife. This is important. His wife had discovered this. And he was the last person known to have been with Kathleen. Kathleen had written 2 notes breaking up with Chad near the time of her death. I'm not sure she was breaking up with him or he was breaking up with her, because he wasn't going to divorce his wife. So I think it's the other way around. He married his wife in 2016. However, approximately 3 years later, he approached Kathleen and told her he'd always been in love with her and began an extramarital affair with her. Because, you know, when somebody comes and says they've always been in love with you, you got to start an affair. See, the mother wants to paint her as completely innocent in everything. Even if she was murdered, she's not necessarily innocent in everything. Okay. Over the years, the boyfriend told Kathleen he was going to divorce his wife, but never made any attempt to do so. Hint, hint, he's not going to do so. They periodically broke up, but each time he promised again to divorce his wife and resume the affair. Well, she's falling for that over and over and over again. Approximately a year before Kathleen's death, she found a mobile phone, the wife, that he had used to text Kathleen, and saw numerous romantic messages. As a result, he broke up with Kathleen, telling her that he and his wife were going to marriage counseling to repair the relationship. However, within a few weeks, he contacted her and said he was unable to live without her, and he resumed his affair with her. Approximately 4 weeks before her death, the wife found more messages. She was enraged. In response, he told Kathleen he had informed he had informed his wife that he was divorcing her. I know I screwed this up. He told Kathleen that he was going to divorce his wife. He said that over and over again. And just because he said that doesn't mean he meant it. And also, we also don't know if he really told her that, because mommy is saying that. So we don't know if mom is telling the truth about that. Then the wife called her numerous times and screamed at her that she was a homewrecker. And Kathleen informed her mother that sounded like the wife was drunk when she made these calls. Approximately a week before she died, they were together, she and the boyfriend, at a horse show, which the wife did not attend. They were observed by friends together and seen publicly together, and Kathleen reported their intimate relations to friends. Wow, okay, don't do that. Okay, after finding the love notes between Kathleen and the boyfriend, the wife told his parents and other members about their affair. It was decided the family would no longer use her for their veterinary work. Although within days she was asked to return because they needed her veterinary skills. There's questionable whether they had somebody else available. All right. To avoid, the interactions didn't stop though, and the boyfriend and Kathleen continued communicating via Facebook and other methods. Okay. Another note was found in her telephone, which was written after February 14th, she supposedly was telling him she was ending their relationship, moving to Florida. It stated she was going to start over in Florida. Okay, so first of all, I want you to look at the motive of the boyfriend, because this is what the mom is saying. She is suing him for what's the term? What's a lawsuit for? I forgot what the term is. It's not here. I can't find it for some reason. That he caused her death, essentially, like the OJ case, but OJ at least was in court, and so there was a good case, civil case after that. So, but what wrong? Thank you very much. Thank you, Tim. Wrongful death. We'll go with that. Yes, absolutely wrongful death. All right. So she's suing the married boyfriend for wrongful death. It's still in the courts today. Has not been resolved. It's an open case, a civil case. What was his motive? So I want to start with the motive. Then I'm going to go to the scene itself. Okay, let me look at what I'm. Okay, Mari says, why all the staging then? So much happening at once in the crime scene seems excessive and would lead to obvious suspicions. The boyfriend, the wife. If it's a staged crime, it is extremely excessive. Thank you for pointing that out. That is one. Keep that thought in mind. All right. What's the motive for the boyfriend? Just because theoretically there should be a motive, what would it be? Anybody have a clue? It's dead silent. No, nobody has a clue. I mean, supposedly he couldn't live without her, so he decided to kill her so he wouldn't have to live without her. That doesn't make sense. She was leaving. In theory, she was leaving him, but she was moving to Florida. It didn't mean he couldn't get to Florida. And they've been on and off so many times. Did this really mean anything? And of course, I also don't know whether she really broke up with him either. It's like, so yeah. Something else. This is somebody, it would be so she wouldn't spill the beans. Yeah, but that had already happened, right? The wife already knew. The wife was telling everybody. Everybody knew she was telling everybody. Everybody knew they were having an affair. This is not a big secret. So this is one thing that has been put out there. Know something that would cost him his job. And nobody has said anything about that. You would think if you're going to say he had a motive, you point that out. But that has not been pointed out. Motive, if he can't have her, no one can. Okay, that theoretically would be the better motive, I guess. He did it for spite. All right. Okay, you're leaving me finally. Okay. The wife had more motive than him. This is very true. To show the wife he still loved and wanted to stay with her. I think she was already moving to Florida. I mean, there could be a two-person crime because actually, the way that the forensic pathologist describes it, I would be more likely to think two people are involved in staging this than one person, and I'll show you why. In which case, I guess the boyfriend and his wife came over and offed her together. All right. Some dodgy stuff. It just, I don't see there's any real evidence of that. So now we have to go to, I don't think, an implausible motive. Not that I see. But again, we don't know. Maybe he was angry with her and just, if you're going to go off to Florida, well, I'm going to do you in. So let's keep it on the platter that we don't know what's in the heads of people sometimes. So maybe somebody did come over and kill her. There wasn't any sign of breaking and entering. So somebody would have to come into the house that she probably permitted into the house. And certainly it's not going to, could it be a serial killer? Well, in theory, but boy, that's a fancy bunch of stuff that the serial killer's doing. I mean, maybe Sean Patton, who was out of prison, wanted to see another death like that. And so he came in and then he did it. But it's the drugs in her system which are so weird, and that's where it gets very confusing, very, very confusing. So let's go to what the forensic pathologist has to say. Okay, where are you, forensic pathologist? Where are you? First I want to read you. First, I do want to read to you the. Okay, where'd it go? Not that one. Oh, here it is. All right. No, that's not it. Sorry. Crap. I've lost it again. Where is it? Is this one? Oh, here we go. All right. This is the Franklin County Forensic Science Center. Now, this is what This is what the police, no, the coroner said. The forensic pathologist. Okay. Conducted by Andrea McCullum, the forensic pathologist at the Franklin County Coroner's Office. All right. She says this, the basic stuff. There was a blue rope around the neck. A furrow was fully around the neck. Circumferential. Now, hold on a second here. I just want. I wish I had pictures. I need pictures, and I don't have pictures. This is why it's an educational channel and nothing but that. It went around in a circle, but here's the problem. I've lost the page. No, what did I just do to it? Opened up something else. Oh, here it is. Okay. No, sorry guys, hold on. Okay, there we are. It's a circumference around the neck, but when you if you're hanging like this, usually it goes like this and goes up in the back. There's a furrow. I really can't figure it out with that stupid picture. On the left side, posteriorly, it's 6 inches from the top of the head. So back here, it's 6 inches from the top of the head. I'm thinking what I'm hearing is that it went up like this. Okay. Which makes sense anyway, because she was in the literature was coming from a beam in the basement and she was in it. Whether somebody put her in it, she put herself in there. Okay. I'll get to this in a minute about whether we choked her out in a fight and then staged the rest. All right. So, all right. All right. Now, she also had on her arm a green rubber tourniquet on the right arm, puncture wounds. Okay, she had puncture wounds. Okay, the internal thing. Okay, the neck. The larynx and trachea have a normal caliber and free of obstruction. Nothing. Hyoid bone was unremarkable. Neck was unremarkable outside of the. There's just nothing unremarkable about that. There's just the furrow in her neck. That's basically it. I'm not sure I love that. I don't think I would like to be more descriptive, but maybe it came with the pictures and I don't have the pictures. Now, let's look at let me try to find the right one now here. Okay. Where's the report? Where's the report? Report. Hold on a second. Here's the normal report. Okay, now the doctor they brought in. All right. View as PDF. Thank you. All right. One of the reasons these things disappear when they're connected to certain sites. All right. So this is Stephen Norman. That's the guy they brought in. All right. So what he says here, there are large bilateral contusions of her lower neck and shoulders. The superficial nature of these contusions is confirmed in the photos. These bruises are consistent with being placed in a variety of chokeholds, a variety of them, such as a lateral vascular neck restraint. There's a contusion of her right ear, which may have been sustained in such a chokehold or otherwise in a struggle with the perpetrator. There seems to be no innocent explanation for this particular bruise. What? Okay. Now, what's the problem here? From the coroner's report, she noticed none of these things around the neck or shoulders. But this guy, using photos from autopsy, notices them. So the coroner completely missed all of that? I mean, maybe she's a horrible coroner. Maybe it's true. But is it true? Or is he looking at some other kind of discoloration for some reason? I don't know. But let's say there was theoretically a chokehold and like an arm bar across the neck. Because what he didn't say was anybody was strangling her. Okay, that didn't happen. So somebody was coming behind her and doing this. Now, two things can happen when you do this. If you hold it too long, the person dies. That's how once in a while you'll get somebody at a bar, and the bouncer will have this drunk guy and he'll be holding on to him too long. I think it was a guy on a train who made that mistake. Somebody was harassing people on train, and he put them in this hold, and he held it just a little too long, and the guy just died. So if you hold it too long, the person dies. But can you tell me, anybody who's here, what happens when you release it? If you didn't, the hyoid bone is still intact. And that, so it wasn't a judicial drop, and it wasn't somebody crushing it. So it was definitely would have to be somebody from behind. But what happens when you armbar somebody and then let go? The blood returns, correct, and the person wakes up. If you've ever watched that, because I'm an MMA person, so if you ever watch those, sometimes what will happen is the guy will have a chokehold on the guy, and guillotine or whatever he's got on this guy, and most of the time they tap out so they can get that, or so they can breathe again. But if they don't tap out because they're one of those little stubborn suckers, what'll happen is suddenly the ring guy, well, I mean, I always forget the name of these people. Anyway, he gets in there and he separates them, and then the guy just if he's holding him up like this, guy just drops to the ground. You can see his eyes are and he drops to the ground. But then he recovers fairly quickly. So keep that in mind. So now he's saying that this guy arm bars her. Thank you, Clarissa, referee. Yeah, referee. No, ring announcer was I forgot last time I said something. Now I've forgotten referee. I do know the judges. Okay, and I do know some of the names of the guys. John Jones, yeah, that's one of them. But me and names, me and words, and it is not Alzheimer's, so don't go there. I've been this way forever, and so many words in one's head, and when I was doing a live show, so I don't get to, to do my editing and make it look all slick. So yes, the referee will separate them. So anyway, now what they're saying is, okay, get this straight. He arm bars her, and then after he arm bars her, he puts a butterfly IV in her arm, attaches the syringe or whatever that thing is, and then he pumps her with the what's the name of it again? See, I've already forgotten the name of that stuff. What's the name of it? Shoot. Xylazine. Okay. So, thank you. Let's get ready to rumble. So anyway, so now she's there. So try to go do it. If this was a crime reenactment, oh my God, a crime reenactment. So we got the guy. He gets in there and he says, his boyfriend, I guess, because I just can't see that the wifey by herself would be good at doing this. Maybe, but I'm going to get to the possibility of two people. So now you got the guy, and he gets in there and he's like, honey, I want to talk to you. I am going to leave the wife. So, even if you go to Florida, I'm going to leave the wife, and so we can still have some time together. And I'm going to divorce her eventually. So just go set yourself up in Florida. I'm going to divorce her, and eventually I'll come down to Florida and be with you. Let's say that's the story he uses to get in the house to kill her. And now they're in the house, and she turns her back on him. And he goes, and now he arm bars her. There is no sign of any kind of struggle, like scraping our hands or trying to get, sometimes when you try to get an arm bar off of it, you scrape on your own neck. There's nothing like that. No abrasions, no anything like that, nothing under her fingernails or whatever. So now he's arm barred her, and she goes, and she passes out. Now, if he holds it long enough, she will be dead. And then what? At that point, he's going to try to put a butterfly IV in her and put some stuff. She's already dead. And then he's going to carry down there, and he's going to set up, because mind you, this isn't set up. So now he's going to say, oh, I should hang her in the basement. So now he's going to run down and he's going to look for some rope, you see, and he's going to make this whole noose thing, and then he's going to get her body and take. All right, that's a little hard to believe, but they don't really think that she was dead before he put the thing in. They think she was incapacitated because the blood was running down her arm. So I mean, so the idea is that he arm bars her, and then she's unconscious while he does all of this. But she's not going to be unconscious that long. So as soon as he starts stabbing her up, I'm pretty sure she's like, what are you doing? And she's going to be kicking and fighting. But that didn't happen. I guess then he chokes her again, puts her back out again, keeps choking her and putting her back out, because this guy thinks there's multiple chokeholds. And he's trying to get this thing in her arm. And he's trying to stage, at this point, stage this. Now, if you really want to stage this, it's a lot easier, quite frankly. Remember how the family, this is what I find funny. The family says she would, if she wanted to kill herself, she'd just take one of those drugs and just stab herself in the leg. Well, if that's true, and you wanted to stage this, wouldn't she just stab her in the leg and then leave the needle next to her and walk out the door? Wouldn't that be easier? You know, I mean, why would you go through all of this nonsense? And if you wanted to maybe not do the drug thing, you could arm bar her, and then you could drag her over to a door and use any kind of rope or any kind of tie from a robe. You could just hang it on a doorknob and you stuff her in there. You could do that. That would be an easier staging. Well, what the heck? So now you're going to put a butterfly IV in her and get all this thing, get it into her, and then you're going to take her downstairs, because it's not killing her right away. So now you incapacitated her long enough to do all of this to her. And mind you, there were some marks on also the left arm, which I think the police believe that she tried her left arm and the veins weren't working. So that's why she switched to the right arm, even though this was her dominant hand. But, okay, so he tries on the left arm because maybe he knows she's right-handed and he wants to stage this. He wants to stab her in the left arm, but it didn't work. So then he went to the right arm. And all this time, mind you, she's unconscious for no reason whatsoever. And now he's getting this butterfly. He's got to put a tourniquet on her, put the butterfly. He's got to do all this stuff while she's supposedly asleep. And none of these things. When you tie something around somebody's arm, it squeezes. When you puncture them, it hurts, especially when somebody else is doing it to you. So how the heck is she not awake and fighting? So then he gets this stuff into her. As I said, now he's got this done. And now why does he just leave it at that? Okay, so she's on the couch. He put the what is it called again? Xylazine in her system. You put enough in her system, she will die from the xylazine. Why do you need to go hang her in the basement? What's the point? Just leave her on the couch. She'll look like she killed herself on the couch with the xylazine. Oh, and then what gets more interesting, she didn't do it because the bottle that was used isn't there. You want to stage a crime, but you take away the bottle? You take away the things that you would use to those things that the woman was talking about, the pieces of plastic and the wrapper and the actual thing you got the xylazine out of. Instead of leaving that next to her body, you could then clean up and take it away. Who would do that if you're trying to stage the scene? You make it look like she just desperately just opened the stuff up, did it, and died. So, the easier version would be just stab her in the dang leg, like the family said she would have done to herself if she wanted to die, with any kind of medication. And 2, if he's going to go through all that other nonsense, he's going to leave the junk next to her body. And then there's absolutely zero reason to take her down to the basement and tie her up to what the heck? That's an excessive staging that doesn't make any sense for him to even do. Does that look more like a suicide? Actually, they did decide it was a suicide, but still, I don't think if you're planning to kill somebody, that's the way you do it to make it look like a suicide. And then you would have to bring either she had this is the other thing. She either had 2 bottles and he took one of the bottles with him, or he brought a bottle. And if he didn't bring all the stuff with him, then he got there and then he's like, he's got her on the armbar and he's going, I wonder what I can use to not kill her off. And then he's got to figure out what to use. He's got to find all the things. What? I mean, this makes no sense at all. So, case of the despairing bottle, yeah, all these things, it just makes no sense. Now, on the other hand, why would she have done what she did if she was killing herself? And I'll give you a scenario which I think the family's having trouble with. I think it's entirely possible that the xylazine was prepared not on the day she did it, but was available prior. She might have been going through some thoughts for a few days prior. So she prepared this, said, and she might even prepared the noose in the basement. She might have said, if I'm going to go out, I want to make sure I'm going out. I don't want to suffer. I want it to be quick, but maybe she didn't know the simpler way, but because she maybe just wasn't aware, but she had these drugs. So she thought to herself, what I'll do, and this is what I think she did eventually do. What I will do is I will get this set up. I will give myself an IV and I will have the drug ready. Then I will go down to the basement. I will put my head in that noose and I will inject the xylazine. And then she just dropped the needle. I'm not a medical person to know how that all works, but anyway. And then she injects that. And at that point, if you've got your head in a noose, what happens is that xylazine will knock you out and you will collapse and be unconscious while you're in the noose. It may be that she wanted that double measure. So A, she didn't feel anything, and B, that she would be sure not to wake up and that, or have anything go wrong. She did the double thing. Now, then you say, but what about all the items? Where's the xylazine? Where's this? Where's that? Well, it's very possible she got rid of them because she prepared things the day before or 2 days before. So she put that in the trash and the trash is already gone. The thing's just ready for if she wanted to use it. Maybe she wasn't even sure she was going to use it, but she's a very neat freak. She's very organized and very neat. So maybe she set the thing up very nicely as she would set up the whole plan. Then she cleaned up the stuff and got rid of it. And that's why it wasn't there. Maybe, I don't know how much was left in the bottle. Maybe it was almost empty bottle. Maybe she just threw the bottle away for whatever reasons, because she wanted it not to be there. She just got her little kit ready to go. And then she took care of herself. And that to me makes a whole lot more sense than the boyfriend coming over and trying to somehow knock her out and stab her all up and find the xylazine and then find a real, that's a heck of a lot of work and people don't do all that. Now you could add in the wifey and say, okay, well, she came to help so she could hold her down. I probably think not. She was a pretty strong woman. She was a horsewoman. I'm pretty sure she would fight that wife. Well, maybe he held her down and the wife knew how to do all that stuff. Maybe. Did they bring all that over with them and then decide they're going to go down to the basement and make that noose as well? Again, why not just use the drugs? What the family says is that the drugs would cause us pain, but it's questionable depending on how much you give and all that stuff. Whether it just knocks you out, you get become unconscious, and then maybe if you're not enough medicines in your system, you will wake up again if you're not hanging in a noose. So then you might feel pain. So, it's really hard because I don't know the exact amounts of everything used. But again, there's no reason for the whole thing in the basement that she was found in. So she was in the ligature. And it makes zero sense to me that somebody else came into her basement and set that whole thing up and then used the method. It's just so ludicrous to me. I can't buy it. So his death makes sense as far as Sean Patton goes. But I can't see how. I don't think she's going to win the case, the mom. And I don't know that the mom she's got this Dr. Norman, who's willing to go ahead and say, oh, let's see, he says just so many odd things. I could go. He's got like 20 different reasons why that she was murdered. And I just don't think most of his stuff doesn't make sense to me. It's just like, well, this could be and that could be. And he was willing to go with it. And and I don't know if he was paid or what, but I would think he would be. And so she's using that she went to the police, and the police read that and said no. And they, now interesting enough, the coroner, the woman who did the actual original autopsy, changed it to undetermined. And it was because the family said that the materials that were used to do this drug stuff weren't there. And so based on that, she changed it to undetermined, just because she was like, well, I just don't know. Maybe it's possible. And I'll leave it to the police. Well, the police said no. Police said no, this is not a homicide. So now she's gone to civil court. The mom's gone to civil court. And I don't think she can win because, first of all, the police have not determined it to be even a homicide. And she has no evidence the boyfriend was involved. Even if somebody murdered her, there's no way to prove the boyfriend did it. There's nothing there that says he was involved in any way, shape, or form. And yet she's going after him. She may be doing that simply to rattle the police. I don't know, hoping that they'll reopen the case and look at it more strongly. I don't really object to them doing that, but I don't know if they've already done that. See, that's it. They are the ones that have the crime scene photos. They've done the interviews. I don't have access to that. So maybe they got this information from her, looked through it all, reevaluated everything and said, no, it's not a homicide. And they're not going to go there. So I don't know. They may have already done that and she's already kind of stuck. But interesting to me that when she did the obituary, she seemed to think she wasn't murdered at that point. But now she thinks she's murdered. But that sometimes happens. In the beginning, they're willing to accept it. But then after they start thinking about it, they're like, no, I can't accept this. But what interested me was she admitted she had some kind of emotional problems in that obituary. And one of the emotional problems was she was, hooking up with a married man in a frustrating relationship she shouldn't have been in. And maybe had other problems that the mother was alluding to that now she says she doesn't have any of. So it's very complicated, but I simply, that whole scenario of how this guy supposedly committed this homicide just doesn't work for me at all. So perhaps Mincy says, perhaps she needed to create a more dramatic effect than being peaceful on a sofa. Okay, it's possible. Now, sometimes what people do if they're madly in love and and maybe she's not leaving him, maybe she was rejecting her, maybe she was going to go to Florida, but she thought he would follow and they would eventually divorce the wife, blah, blah, blah. Maybe she was obsessed with him and maybe she wanted him to see how, look what I did to myself because of you. Sometimes that's the whole reason. Yeah, maybe. Or maybe she just wanted to make sure that she was not going to survive, because a lot of people, can survive an attempt. But I just, it's a weird one. What? What? She didn't have a history of depression. We don't know that. She was getting out of Dodge. She was moving, supposedly, starting a new life, and men are jealous. He's a psychopath. Well, that's what the mother thinks anyway. This is a great point. Anne-Marie says she was a perfectionist. Maybe she wanted to be sure it would work. She knew the drug, xylazine. I have to keep looking over here because no way I can remember that name. And luckily it's in front of me now. Xylazine. That's what she gave to horses all the time. That was her number one drug she gave to horses. She knew exactly how it worked. And if she believed that if I just inject this, maybe for whatever reason she thought the other things, I don't know reason why she thought I can't go with other drugs that I have. But maybe, I don't know. I don't know what her motive was in that. But I just can't get this. I just can't get this to be a homicide. I try, and it's just so ludicrous that, the only thing that this guy tells me is this extra bruising. And I just don't know if it's true, because I'm like, why wouldn't the original coroner see any of that? And note it in her notes. You note it, even if you still think she just hung herself, you still note that there's some of these weird things here. And who knows if that happened also right at that moment. It could have, I don't know how old the bruising was. She worked with horses, for Christ's sakes. Sometimes you get kicked by those buggers. It's like, And, you're working in a thing where you sometimes struggle with an animal. And so she could have been injured easily by anything. We had some people out here just recently. They were doing the shearing of the llamas and the alpaca, and there was a couple llamas there. They were not cooperative. And they eventually have to put them on the ground and tie their feet to posts because. But you should have seen there were two women that come out and do it, and those llamas were like slamming them against things. It was kind of like, oh my God, somebody's going to get hurt. And they were tough. I mean, they fought with that, but they probably could have gone home and gone, hey, look what that llama did to me. So I don't know, because I don't have access to it, whether these are just older bruises or there were any bruises. And I don't know. But again, I can't see how the boyfriend would come over and put the IV in her arm to give her that stuff. And then, I mean, that has to be something in your own mind saying, I'm going to set this up. And like you said, she's a perfectionist. And that's why I don't think any of the trash was there, because she was a perfectionist. So the scene is going to be set, and she's not going to have wrappers rolling around and stuff like that. So I think that's a very good point. Somebody agrees with me. Thank you. And again, I can't absolutely say this is true or not true, because I don't have access to the crime scene photos or all the police reports. And if I went in to work, if her mom said, who's probably not going to like me right now, but if her mom said, hey, look, I saw your video and I'm upset with it because I believe my forensic scientist guy. Okay, if you can get me into the police department, I'll roll over to Ohio. Well, actually, you should have, I take that back. You should have every bit of that information, because you were able to give it to him. I forgot, it's a closed case. It's a closed case. It's now been put undetermined, so I don't know if that sucks the information, recloses it. But usually, once it's closed, if you were, and you're a lawyer, so mom's a lawyer, so she could get all that information to me. And I would relook at this case. I'd relook at it and say, okay, because I'm not saying she absolutely was not murdered. I just said if I'm leaning, I was, with him, in the beginning, I was actually leaning toward him not being murdered till enough evidence came in. And then it was like, wow, this is one of the weirdest murders I've ever seen. But there's a lot of reasons why it looked the way it did. And in this case, I'm not leaning toward murder, but it doesn't mean it couldn't be. But I am having trouble with making it work. And it leans more to me that she was depressed, like you said in the obituary, that she was depressed and had problems, and she was breaking up with the boyfriend she kept breaking up with. And people do take their lives. And again, 3 times the national average for veterinarians, females. So was she overstressed? Was she just exhausted? Was she just fed up with it all? I don't know. But if I could see the rest of the case files, all the photos, all the police reports, everything, interviews, all that, I might change my mind and say, yeah, actually I can figure out a way now that she could have been murdered. But from here, I just can't come up with it. Let's see. Well, again, why did she accept it originally as not being a homicide? She thought, okay, she killed herself. And then she changed her belief to homicide. That happens quite often. It's because in the beginning you're shocked that police tell you what you should believe. And so in the very, very beginning, you might believe, actually Sharon didn't believe it. But I've had people say, oh, I believed it for a couple of weeks. And then I realized, because when the brain starts clearing, then they start analyzing it. And then they, not only are they analyzing it and trying to find things that disprove that their loved one took their life, but now they want to prove that their loved one didn't take their life. Now they want to be free of that guilt, free of all of that, free of the anger, and they want to find a way to displace it. And so they go that direction. But it's always interesting to see what they say in the beginning, because to the press, she said she had 0 problems, but she didn't have 0 problems. That was even in the obituary. So, and then they say later when she went to the press, she didn't mention the same things. And then, but interesting, when she needed a suspect, suddenly the information about the affair comes out, because she needed a suspect. to kill her, because who else is going to do all that stuff? I mean, theoretically, if somebody did that, it would have to be somebody who knew her and was really upset with her, or wanting to not, like, say, not, nobody else can have you type of thing. And I just don't think that a female could fight her that much alone. So I think the wife is unlikely. But I don't believe they have a shred of proof. And I don't even know whether he actually has an alibi. Maybe he has an alibi. She says he was the last person to see her. Doesn't mean he was with her when she died. Doesn't mean that he didn't go someplace else and have an alibi. If his wife was the alibi, of course, that's worthless. But, well, I don't know. I don't know why the police came to the conclusion it was not a homicide, and why they didn't go after this. I don't know. Maybe I don't know. I just don't know, because I don't have all the information. She was being vilified in the town. I don't know that she was. I mean, the wife called her a homewrecker. It was affecting her business and reputation. Now, that's a good point. Thank you. I like that point. We're not hearing from the mother that maybe when this went out, I mean, already that one group was saying we're not going to hire her. And they may be telling everybody in town, don't hire her. And then she's moving to Florida. Why is she doing that? Is it because she's got issues in that town now, so she's got to start over in Florida? Or did she just always want to go to Florida? I don't know. And again, we're hearing a rendition from somebody who has got a reason to give us a certain viewpoint of her. But yeah, I mean, maybe her reputation was wrecked. That's true too. Marie says bruising could be from anything, falling off a ladder while she was setting everything up. Just don't know. I mean, I've had bruises on my body. I don't even know where the hell they came from. You ever do that? You all of a sudden look down and go, oh my God, what happened to my arm? And you don't remember hitting anything. It's like, you'd think I'd know, and sometimes you have, I mean, I tripped when I was in Hawaii. I was just walking on a street and I had the pavement that goes like this, and it was dusk and my foot just hit that, and I went down and I smashed onto the ground. And I was thrilled when I got up, because I was like, oh, look, nothing broken. Because I landed on my arm and my leg hit there, and I went flying, and I hit the pavement and the curb. And so I thought for sure, I've done it now. I just got to Hawaii, and now I won't be able, I broke my leg or my wrist or something. And I started moving. I said, okay, well, that's working. And then I got up and I was thrilled. I was like, oh man, nothing's broken. Oh, I didn't. And then the next day people said, oh my God, your leg, what happened to you? Your arm's bruised, your leg's all bruised up. I'm like, it's okay. I was so excited that I wasn't hurt. More than that, I'm like, yeah, that would go away. So I really wasn't worried about that. To me, it was meaningless. But yeah, it's so easy to get that kind of thing. So I just don't know. Cheryl says, I agree with you, Pat. Anything else is too convoluted. Yeah, I just can't make it work. And that's what a crime scene reenactment is for, to see whether can you even do it. And I just don't think with an arm bar, you can arm bar her and then release the arm bar to then put all this thing in her. I mean, I could understand where you arm bar her and you just pull a hypodermic out and stab her in the leg. That makes sense. You get her, you get her under control, you make her unconscious, and you go. That works. But to try to put an entire IV, a tourniquet and IV, how do you do that? And once you let her arm and that go, she's awake. I just don't even understand the theory. Can chokehold bruising be self? Well, that would be pretty weird. I mean, in theory. I mean, again, you could be hitting yourself with objects. I don't know. I mean, again, I haven't seen the picture. Taylor, my 8-year-old daughter wants to be a veterinarian. I'm about to tell her to get a new dream. I didn't know it was such a rough field, but I would not be able to euthanize all those animals. I think that goes against, it's like, here you are trying to save animals and all people's pets, and they keep having to put them down one after the other. I don't know that I could do that. No, that would do it. Oh, that's true. This is true, Christoph. Relatives find this hard to accept. This applies not only to taking your own life, but also to very tragic, silly accidents in which the victim simply behaved foolishly and made a mistake. Yes, because who wants to think your child did this dumb thing and they died for the dumb thing? And if we look at the Nolan Wells case right now, Nolan Wells was found drowned off of Horn Island. Look, I remember the name. Out with his friends for the big celebration, out on the boats, having a great time, drinking, and he ends up drowned. I don't know why. I don't believe he was murdered. I think that's horrible that his friends are being accused of being murderers. It's just sick because they were his good friends. But sometimes people drink and do stupid things, and maybe just decide they've got to go to the bathroom. They wade into the water. Maybe they're just playing around in the water and they step off and they lose their balance and they go under and something. That's it. I mean, it's amazing how people drown and not even what looks like dangerous waters. Although the area that he drowned in apparently did have some issues. But now the mother doesn't want to believe that her beautiful young son. I mean, he seemed like a really nice guy. People liked him. He was, he did well in school. He had a great future ahead of him. You don't want to believe that for the stupid guy. You went to a stupid party. You basically go into a rave on a stupid island where everybody gets drunk with this water. Yeah, why did you do that? So it's easier to believe that he was murdered because then you can't blame your son for being an idiot. But anybody who's a parent knows that their kids have been idiots at times. Anybody who's been a teenager knows we've been idiots at times. Even as an adult, sometimes we've been idiots. And you think, how am I still here? Because I did some real dumb stuff. How am I still here? But what if you weren't here and then, then your family doesn't want to believe that you did some stupid, dumb thing? Yeah, it's easier to say somebody killed you. Yeah, it's true. Yeah, that's a very good point. Yeah, I think this is true. Bruises can happen easily if one works with big animals. And that's what bothers me about Dr. Norman's report. He keeps coming up with a reason that this is proof of a homicide. What he's not doing, which bothers me, because if I were analyzing this case, I would look at all the possible explanations for each thing. And I would say, this could be true, or that could be true. First of all, he's not a crime. I don't know how much often he analyzes actual crimes. So he's going from looking at an autopsy to analyzing the whole crime. And he's not a crime scene investigator or a profiler or a detective. He's a forensic pathologist. So he may be way overstepping what he can do. And he's putting out this stuff without proof that there's not another way this can be. And so if you want to analyze this properly, he should go through all the different possibilities, but he's not. He's come down to the conclusion, as he says at the end, in my opinion, based on a reasonable degree of medical certainty, that the manner of death in the case of Kathleen Lennon is homicide. I have no other opinions at this time. It is possible, should additional evidence be provided to me for review, I may have additional and subsequent opinions. But you're making conclusions based on stuff that is ridiculous to conclude. And so that bothers me. So I was not overly impressed with his determinations at all. And I think it's because he was told, I think it's a homicide, therefore he leaned toward homicide. So I think he lost his objectiveness, which does happen sometimes, especially when it's like when you hear people talking on the internet, on media about certain cases, you'll see them lean the way that they think is going to be most popular, which will get them the most clicks, which will not get them in trouble, and they'll lean that way. But if they say, hey, this is possible and that is possible, people get jump all over them. They don't want that. So they go toward, then their objectivity disappears and they lean toward what is popular. And so it happens with professionals too. Even a headbutt from an excited dog. Yeah. A lot of people said they did stupid stuff when they were younger, for sure. Well, I can't remember here. No other DNA. As far as I know, there's no other DNA. Now, I can't remember what they said because they didn't look for it. I don't have the proof on that. So, oh God, that whole thing. Oh, the whole choking game. I just hate that. It's just, I don't know when that ridiculous stuff started. It's just, yeah. It's a horrible thing, and kids have died of it for sure. Just going back at some of your comments. Uh, the New Orleans pathologist said that xylazine causes intense pain for humans, and he thought this was evidence against her doing it. Well, if you wanted to stage that she killed herself, why would you use xylazine then? Because that would look stupid. You see? So either way, whether she did it herself or somebody else did it to her, then the same thing applies to both circumstances. And I don't know. I've tried to look up whether that really caused pain, and I don't know whether it causes pain if you don't give a high enough dose, so then you're not knocked out. So then the pain, you do have pain. But if you take a high enough dose, you basically go unconscious very quickly. I think I looked it up. Okay, hold on a second. I know I did something on xylazine. Okay, here we go. I actually put this into AI because where else are you going to find it? It says, and this is why, again, this is an educational channel. This is not me professionally analyzing the case, because if I were professionally analyzing this case, I'd be spending a hell of a lot of time on this. And I'd be going to a lot of experts, and more than one, because I would want proper information. Injecting xylazine into humans causes severe central nervous system depression, dangerously low heart rate and blood pressure, profound sedation, and necrotic skin ulcers. Oh, that's lovely. Also called, trank, a zombie drug, not approved for human use. All right. Severe sedation. It induces an intense hours-long blackout or heavy nod. This leaves individuals completely unresponsive and highly vulnerable to physical harm, hypothermia, or positional injuries. Well, if you have a blackout, isn't that exactly what you would want? So how is this painful and terrifying? Because if the concept is, I don't want to wake up. I don't want to take this stuff and wake up. And I don't know. Doesn't it kill you? How much would you need? Okay, overdose. Overdose. It's frequently mixed into illicit drug supply. While she's not doing that. Okay, let me ask AI. What happens if you just inject a huge amount of it into your bloodstream? Let's see what it says. Push. Okay. Sometimes when I ask questions like this, it'll immediately give me something that says, if you're having problems, please call this number. And I'm like, no, I'm not having problems. This is a criminal thing. And they go, and then AI goes, oh, sorry. Injecting large amounts of substances such as xylazine directly into the bloodstream constitutes a severe medical emergency, immediate collapse, coma, and death. No, they're talking about self-harm again. I can now contact the suicide and crisis headline. Okay. So I don't think that pain thing makes sense. I think she knew exactly what it would do. At least that's what it appears. And she wanted a double deal, because if you put your head through the rope, the noose, and you inject this stuff, she will collapse into a coma, and you won't know anything from that moment on, but you won't wake up. There's no waking up happening. Now, why anybody would choose that, I don't know. But also, as a homicide, it makes very little sense. So even if it's weird for taking your own life, it's 10 times weirder to stage this when there's simpler ways to stage it. And I don't know how you'd have all the materials and be able to even accomplish it. So just because, I don't know, let's say this guy is the claims he makes, just nobody's arguing with him. So if I were with him and we were doing this together, the first thing I'd say is, well, that's that chokehold, sleeper hold thing you got going. There's only going to last for like 20 seconds when once you release, so how's he going to do the IV thingy? And I want to hear the answer. And he will probably go, oh, I don't know. Okay. So, one would think, Mincy, she could fairly estimate the right dose for a desired effect, especially since she was a very, very, she wanted to make sure things always went right. She was a perfectionist. So she would definitely determine that. But I don't know. Oh, that gave her the nerve to go through with it. Well, it's no. Once she injected that thing, she would be out. So it's not a nerve. It's not like it's not making you high and happy so you don't care what happens. No, you're going to be out. So that's why they're talking about these blood streams. And it's like, well, she would be on the couch. I'm like, well, yeah, because she would set up the arm stuff on the couch. It's just she's just not using the drug yet. But she'd do the IV on the whatever's comfortable for her, wherever she was sitting. And then she would have some blood going certain directions depending on where she was sitting. That's meaningless. And they make this big deal of it. I had proved that she couldn't have done it because, I don't know, they had her trying to do this while she was standing on a ladder. It didn't make any sense. It depends. Depends. No. Pain can be a hindrance. There are people who want pain, and there are people who don't want pain. And so, no, some people will choose the most painless way they can think of, and other people do really strange stuff. So, yeah. He was also in the horse industry. I don't think he was a vet, but I think he had horses and was in the horse industry. So that's why they knew each other, because they were at all just different shows together and all that stuff. So, yeah. So he and that's why the guy is saying, oh, well, this the medicine, I forgot the name, xylazine. It's around different places where horses are, so he could access it. So he accessed it and brought it along with him with all the stuffed equipment, because he was planning to armbar her and put an IV in her arm. It's just stupid. Again, he would just use the. And one can ask again, why did she even feel a need for the second part? Why didn't she just use the drug and but maybe she thought she would survive. And maybe she didn't want to. So she just did a double dose of methodologies. Yeah, that and Tide Pods. Don't do those things. Oh Lord. But too, it's and yet it is possible she wanted to hurt the boyfriend for hurting her, make him feel guilty forever. Very, very possible. Oh, perhaps she wanted to frame her lover. It's strange she cleaned up so long ahead. No, I don't think it's strange at all that she cleaned up ahead of time, if that's what she did. Because again, she may not have been ready to do it, but she was preparing. Because you have to really prepare that crap. So you got to get a noose going, and you got to get your meds going. And then you have, unless you're going to do all of that at once, which is a lot of stuff that day, I think she could have been considering it. And it may be that if something had changed, she wouldn't have done it. Maybe she would have said, never mind, take the noose down, put the stuff away. But maybe she set it all up and just cleaned up, and she's a perfectionist and everything's ready in case. So, it's hard to get inside somebody's head, but that's why when you do crime scene reenactment, sometimes it's not so much that why they're doing it. It's just, can they even do it? And so can they do it or can't they do it? And one of the things in this case, which eventually bothered the police, was, first of all, the damage to the head. Secondly, the chair that was not underneath him. In other words, even if he pushed it over, it wouldn't have gone as far as it did across the room. So somebody else had to be there. Now, the only other possibility, and this is, again, when somebody disturbs the crime scene, theoretically, his mom could have just pushed the chair across the room when she was trying to get to his body. In that case, the chair was under him. So you see, gets a little tricky there. Or the person, just because the chair is, and some person could knock the chair over too, like Sean Patton, knock the chair over and not push it across the room. Just knock the chair over, and he wasn't expecting it, and then, whatever. make sure he can't open the door, So there's all these different things you would go through when you're trying to absolutely determine what happened. But in Sean Patton case, pretty much no, he'd like to see people die. So it wasn't like and he was there. He was there. So yeah, so I don't have any problem with him being in prison. But at this point, I can't prove that this is a homicide in any way, shape, or form, unless I can see a whole bunch of stuff that would convince me otherwise. So, um, uh, well, usually if you want to take your life, you don't want to change your mind in the middle of something that you're doing and then can't get out of it, obviously. So that's why usually people, if they really, unfortunately, want to do themselves in, they do. Sometimes it's a cry for help. And when it's a cry for help, they usually do a very poor job of it, so they can survive it. And so they don't take enough pills, or they know somebody's about to open the door and they take them right before the person opens the door. And then, oh my God, they call 911. But, it's not, if you don't want somebody to find you, you get it, you go drive far, far away and you do something to yourself in the middle of a woods. I guarantee you nobody's going to get to you in time. But that's somebody who intends to kill themselves. But a lot of people are crying out for help, and so sometimes if you see it repeated, they keep going to the hospital for these things. They want help. They're not necessarily trying to do themselves in, even though it's classified as an attempt. So, I like leaving a hotel. Amory says, both very interesting cases and sad. They were both young with their lives ahead of them. Yeah, I mean, it's just, especially for Greg, because he wasn't trying to leave this world. I mean, he may have been playing around with terrible people, he made bad choices and friends, and maybe had some, he's exploring stuff he shouldn't have been exploring. But it doesn't mean that he wanted to do himself in. He was probably looking forward to all the cool things that were going to happen in the next years of his life, which he never got. In her case, she had a great life up until 33. But people get overwhelmed, they get stressed, and she was in a relationship she shouldn't have been in for 3 years. She should have known better, but I don't know why she was in that relationship. I don't know. So we can blame him because he was a married man, but I don't have when women mess with married men, I feel the same way, or married men mess with married women, especially when there's children involved, because there's children there, and you shouldn't be messing around with somebody's spouse. When I got divorced, people said, "Are you dating?" I said, "Well, first of all, if I meet somebody and they say, oh, they're separated, I'm not happening. No, I'm not dating you when you're separated, because they're still not divorced. Because a lot of times when people separate, one of that other spouse may be hoping that you're going to get your act together and come home, or you may be going to marriage counseling and trying to work it out, or you may be taking a break, and trying to figure out what you guys want. And if I start having a relationship with a person who is only separated, I may be ruining that family, and I wasn't going to do that. So unless you're widowed and you didn't kill your wife, or you're divorced, and I absolutely know 100% you're divorced and not getting divorced 100%. And I also want you to be divorced for a long time. Why do I say that? Because sometimes people get divorced, but they're not really, their heart's still there. And it's too early to be messing with a person. They get divorced, and, everybody's very fragile. And it's not really nice to start up relationships with somebody who just got divorced, because especially when there's kids, because the kids have to deal with this new girlfriend, new boyfriend, whatever. I think that's wrong. I think you should, after your divorce, you should take enough time so that the divorce is absolute. There's no way anybody's getting back together, and some of the wounds are healed. And then your own wounds are healed, that you're not doing, that person is not your, let's see, now what's the word? What's the word? Come on, guys. give me that word. It's a bad day for me. I don't know what's going on. What's the word? Come on, somebody. The person you grab when you, right after you broke up with somebody. Come on, give me a word. Come on, guys. I see it in sign language, but not in English. Somebody help me out. Rebound. Thank you. Oh my God, rebound. Yeah. Oh no, not a booty call. Rebound. Yeah, it's a rebound. And who wants to be a rebound, right? Because you don't know whether they're really over that person. So you want them to get their lives together and they know that everything's finished and now they're looking forward to a new life and you're not the rebound. So yeah. So that's what that was always my viewpoint on doing that. And of course I've never my ex is on wife number 3 and I haven't gotten remarried. So maybe it works better on his methodology. So I don't know. Oh my God. So still missed 6 years. What, I gotta go back and look at this comment. What is this comment? This corner, I don't know who that is. Okay. Huh. Just checking here. Okay, I think that's it. So yeah, these are very two complicated kind of things, but I wanted you to see how complicated it is and how it's very hard to make determinations, especially if you don't have access to all of the information. Now, even this guy, even the forensic guy that I don't think much of, Dr. Norman, I'm not fond of what he wrote because I think he's jumping to conclusions wrongly. He shouldn't even jump to those conclusions, just to say, I don't know. But he says, even at the end, I could change my mind if I knew more. So he's not absolute. But I think at this point, I don't see where this case is going to go because the police are saying she wasn't murdered. And I just don't see how it's going to go that direction unless there's really a massive amount of information. So I'll put it out to the mom again. I mean, hey, if I'm wrong and you got all this information and you want me to look over all the autopsy, crime scene photos and everything so I can determine what's where and see if there's any way that she was murdered, I'd do it. But, unless I can access all that, I can't absolutely be sure any more than Dr. Norman can be. Dr. Norman thinks it's a homicide, but he's not absolutely sure. I don't think it's a homicide, but I'm not absolutely sure. So we'll leave it at that. So, yeah, both cases were a Lulu. They're very, very, very bizarre ones. Yes. So anyway, thank you guys for being here, and I'll see you for the hangout during the week. And yeah, it was fun. If you're new again to the show, please do consider at least subscribing. AI is killing our smaller channels like me. And so please do like and subscribe. And if you want to be in the chat room, please join Patreon in the link below. And I will add up that the short YouTube video that I think the guy had a really nice voice and I liked the way he did it. He has like a few hundred subscribers. So he did like 71 videos and has only got like 300 subscribers. Sometimes it sucks to be on YouTube. You just, even if a person's good, you never know if they're going to make it. And if they're sometimes horrible, they got 500,000 subscribers and you're like, what? Anyway, thank you guys for being here. See you next time. Bye.